There's a framed article in your parents' hallway. Your cousin sold his app for 4 million. You walk past it every Sunday and say nothing. Because last month, you sold a company for $600 million and nobody in that house knows. 6 years ago, you were 26 and nobody knew your name. You spent $600 on a filing fee and a registered agent. 5 people know what you own. Your mother isn't one of them. Sunday dinner, your cousin is telling the Lisbon story again. The one about the acquisition and the earnout and the week he took his parents to the coast. Your mother has heard it 4 times and she leans in anyway. Your father asks a follow-up question he already knows the answer to. Then the table turns to you. She asks if you're doing okay for money. She asks it gently, the way you ask about an illness. You tell her freelancing is slow but steady. That's a true sentence. It isn't the truth. Your phone buzzes against your leg. It's your lawyer. The wire cleared at 11 this morning. You put it face down and pass the potatoes. Nobody notices anything because there's nothing to notice. There never has been. Let's go back 6 years and do this properly. You're 26, you maintain a forecasting spreadsheet that isn't yours, for a department you don't belong to. Once a quarter, somebody presents your work with their name on it. Your manager walks past your desk and doesn't look up. He isn't being cruel. He genuinely does not register that you're there. Everything that happens over the next 6 years starts here, not with ambition, with a very specific kind of anger. You have $11,000 saved and no plan. What you have instead is a question you can't stop turning over. If nobody sees you anyway, what could you do with that? The night you start, you tape an index card to the inside of your closet door. 6 lines. Nobody will ever open that door but you. At the top, you write 2 words. Who knows? The idea is simple, and at the time, it feels clever. Every time somebody finds out what you own, you cross out a line. Keep the lines, keep the secret. Invisibility isn't something you keep. It's something you spend. You spend it one counterparty at a time. Every single time, it's because you need something you can't get any other way. 2 promises before we start. Every structure in this video is real, and I'll show you the law underneath it. And every one of them is completely legal. No fake names, no hidden accounts, nothing a prosecutor would care about. That's the part that should bother you. The first line gets crossed out before you buy anything at all. You just don't notice for 4 years. Before we go further, you need to understand something that happened in Washington. Without it, none of this works. In 2021, Congress passed the Corporate Transparency Act. The plan was simple and honestly, pretty reasonable. Every small company in America would file the names of its real human owners with a federal bureau called FinCEN. No more anonymous shells. 32 million companies. One federal database, closed to the public, open to law enforcement. For most of the last decade, the US was one of the only large economies without a register like that. This was supposed to fix it. You build your first entity while that law is rolling towards you. Then, in March 2025, the Treasury Department switches it off. FinCEN issues an interim rule that redefines one phrase. Reporting company will now mean foreign entities only. Every company created in the United States is exempt. So is every American owner. Not delayed, exempt. The Government Accountability Office measured it in May 2026 and put a number on it. The exemption removed more than 99% of the companies that were supposed to report. A final version of the rule went to the White House Budget Office in June 2026. As of the day I'm making this, it still hasn't been published, which means the door is open right now, held open by a wedge. Nobody can tell you how long that lasts. And I want to be precise about what that open door actually is, because it isn't a door out of the law, it's a door out of one specific list. Every other rule still applies to you in full. All it removes is the searching. And here's the strange part. Search this today and you'll find law firm blogs published this year still saying every American LLC has to file. They're wrong. FinCEN's own website says the opposite. This is one of the most misreported rules in American business. Most people don't know the door is open. You did. $600, a Wyoming filing fee, a registered agent for a year, a mail address that isn't your apartment. Month 3, you find a small direct-to-consumer brand for sale on a marketplace. 3 years old, 1 product line, revenue falling for 8 straight months. The founder is finished. You can tell from his listing, which apologizes twice. He isn't running a business anymore. He's serving a sentence. $4,200, $1,200 in cash, $3,000 on a note he carries himself. You never meet him. You never even hear his voice. Then you spend a weekend on the checkout flow. 3 forms collapse into one. The shipping estimate stops lying to people. That's it. That's the entire turnaround. He wasn't a bad operator, he was an exhausted one, and exhaustion looks exactly like incompetence from the outside. That's the whole opportunity, and you'll buy it 16 more times. 6 months later, you sell it for $31,000 to a buyer who never learns your name. You go into the office the next morning at 9. You sit through a meeting about quarterly targets. Nobody at that table knows you made 2 years of your salary over the weekend, and you find that you don't want them to. The strangest part isn't the money, it's how easy the disguise turns out to be. You get a review that quarter, meets expectations. You thank your manager for the feedback and you mean it, because being underestimated has quietly become load bearing. That night, you write the first rule: never be visible. Not because you're doing anything wrong, because the moment people know what you're building, they start asking why. And why is a door that lets them in. But there's something you did on day one that you've already forgotten about. To open a business bank account, your company needed a tax ID number. To get a tax ID number, the IRS asked for a responsible party, a human being, with a social security number. You typed yours in without thinking about it because it took 9 seconds and there was no other option. The federal government has known exactly who you are since before you owned anything at all. Line 1, crossed out 4 years before you notice. Now you learn the thing that separates people who own one business from people who own 20. The entity matters more than the asset. 4 states let you form a company without putting an owner's name on the public record. Wyoming wants an annual report. It doesn't ask who the members are. New Mexico doesn't even want the report. Delaware doesn't collect member names at all, which is one reason a startling share of American companies live there on paper and nowhere else. Nevada is the odd one out. It publishes a list of managers every year, so people appoint a nominee manager, and the nominee's name goes on the board instead of yours. That's a service. It costs a few $100s a year, and it is entirely above board. Everything you buy from now on belongs to a holding company, not to you. You will become a shadow behind a shadow. But you need to hear what those 4 states actually give you, because almost everybody gets this part wrong. They keep your name out of one public database. That is the entire product. The IRS still knows, your bank still knows, and a judge with a subpoena ends the whole arrangement in an afternoon. Month 14. You open real business accounts, and the bank has its own rules that don't care what Wyoming does. Under customer due diligence, the bank must identify the human being behind the company. You fill it in because there is no version of this where you don't. Line 2, 2 of 6, and you still haven't bought anything anyone would call a real business. Months 14 to 22, you buy 2 more small things: a directory site with lazy ad placement, a tiny invoicing tool with 400 paying users, and an owner who wants to go back to salaried work. You rebuild the directory's back end at 2 in the morning on weeknights. Then you show up at 9 and nod through the quarterly targets meeting. You're living 2 timelines. In one of them, you're an underpaid analyst who's been passed over twice. In the other, you're assembling a portfolio. There's someone in your life through all of this. She thinks work has been hard lately. You've told her that so many times it's stopped being a lie and become a kind of vocabulary between you. She asks once whether you're happy. You say you're busy. She lets it go because busy is an answer people accept. By month 22, the holding company is worth about $180,000. The number of people who know is still 0. Month 22. A seller from a deal you closed 8 months earlier decides he sold too cheap. He isn't entirely wrong either. You bought well, but he signed and he read it and he had a lawyer. He doesn't sue because suing costs more than he's likely to win, so he starts making calls instead. He calls a local business paper. Your name isn't attached to anything public, but your registered agent's name is, and that's a thread. Threads unravel. You don't sleep for 4 days, not because you might lose money, because a stranger with a grievance is one bored journalist away from making you a name in a story. So you do the thing you swore you'd never do. You meet him. Once. A parking garage before work. It's the only place with no staff and no camera pointed at a door you'd have to walk through. You bring paper, timestamps, the full email chain, the signed agreement, the bank record. Proof the deal was clean, because it was clean. You're calm on the outside. Inside, your heart is doing something else entirely. For a while, it doesn't work. He says the paper doesn't matter. He says everyone knows what really happened and that he'll call the reporter anyway. So you say the only true thing you have, that the paper is all there is, that a reporter will ask him for it and he'll have to hand over a page with his own signature at the bottom. He listens, he goes quiet, then he does the thing tired people do, which is take a smaller number to make it stop. $8,000, and he walks away. You drive to your day job shaking. And here's what you notice about the shaking: sitting at a red light on a Tuesday morning. It isn't fear, it's closer to hunger. You just defended something you built out of nothing, using nothing but paper and nerve, and some part of you wants to do it again. After that week, you change how you buy. Every deal gets a broker in the middle. Every seller signs a mutual non-disclosure before you send a number. You stop taking calls with cameras on. None of this is unusual. It's what a careful buyer does. It just happens that careful and hidden look identical from the outside. Money isn't the dangerous part. Exposure is. Rule 3 goes on the card that night. You keep the car with the warning light you've ignored for a year. You keep wearing the same 3 sweaters in rotation and you start to enjoy it, which should probably worry you more than it does. Now the part that actually makes the money, and it has almost nothing to do with working hard. In the second quarter of 2026, the average small business in America sold for about 2.7 times its annual cash flow. Median price, $349,000. Meanwhile, private equity firms buying companies in the $10 to $500 million range paid an average of 7.2 times adjusted earnings. Same kind of earnings, nearly 3 times the price. The difference isn't quality or management or luck, it's size. Big buyers pay more for the same dollar because a bigger dollar is a safer dollar. So you stop flipping and you start stacking. Buy small things at small multiples, bolt them together, and the pile is worth more than the parts purely because it's a pile. You pick one industry and you never leave it again. Managed IT services. Small firms that handle computers for dentists and law offices and machine shops. Boring work. Contracts that renew automatically. Owners in their 60s who have been personally on call every night since 2009 and would very much like to stop. In that industry, the numbers are public. Small firms change hands around 5.5 times owner earnings. Consolidated platforms sell around 11 times adjusted earnings. That gap is roughly 5 turns, and it is the entire business model. And the work itself is deeply unglamorous. You put 9 help desks onto one ticketing system. You move 9 payrolls onto one provider. You cancel 6 overlapping software contracts and nobody notices for a month. Each of those firms ran at around 12% margins on its own. Together, they run at 19 because one person can answer the phone for all of them. That gap is most of the money. None of this is secret either. One private equity-backed group has bought more than 90 of these firms since 2017. Everybody in the industry knows the game and plays it openly. They do it with a leadership page, a press release for every deal, and a founder who speaks at conferences. You're going to do it with none of that, and that choice is about to cost you something you haven't priced yet, because so far it's been free. Month 31. You find the one. A managed IT provider. 40 staff, 2 states, 1 founder who has been personally on call for 19 years. Contracted recurring revenue, $1.9 million a year in earnings. He wants $8.4 million, 4.4 times earnings. It's a fair price, which is exactly why you move fast. You have $1.6 million in cash from everything before this. He'll carry 2.1 on a note. You're 4.7 million short. So you do what every buyer in America does at this size. You call an SBA lender. The Small Business Administration 7 program is the cheapest acquisition money in the country, up to $5 million, 10% down. And crucially, it finances goodwill, which almost nothing else does at this size. The interest rate isn't even the attraction. It's roughly what a private lender would charge you anyway. The attraction is that a government guarantee lets you buy an $8 million company with $800,000 of your own money. Almost nothing else does that for a first-time buyer. The meeting goes well. He likes the recurring revenue. He likes that you've done this before. Then he slides one more form across the desk. Federal Rule, Title 13, Section 120.160. Every owner of 20% or more personally guarantees the loan. Unlimited, uncapped. Your house, your savings, your name on a federal document, and selling your stake later doesn't release you from it. You read the line twice. Your hands go cold, not because of the number and not because you think the business will fail, because the form has a field for your legal name and that document doesn't disappear. And for about 4 seconds, you're going to sign it. The deal is good. The business is real. The guarantee is only dangerous if you fail and you don't intend to fail. Then you think about where that page lives afterwards. In a file, at a bank, indexed under your legal name for as long as the loan exists. You push the form back across the desk. You thank him, you leave. Then you check the alternative. Private credit funds do exactly this kind of lending without a government form, but that market starts at around $25 million in company value. Your deal is 8. You're below the floor. The cheap money wants your name and the quiet money doesn't take calls your size. So you write Rule 4 and you close it the slow way, more cash down, a bigger seller note, a smaller bite than you wanted. Invisibility didn't cost you interest. It costs you leverage. And leverage is only ever a way of buying time. This single decision is why the story you're watching takes 6 years instead of 3. Months 31 to 40. You buy 9 more. Somewhere in here, something changes in you and you don't notice it happening. In the beginning, you built because you were angry. Now you wake at 5 because your brain won't let you stay still. A friend complains about his boss and you catch yourself judging him for it. And it isn't that you think you're better than him. It's worse than that. You've started treating a salary as something that happens to people who didn't look hard enough. 2 years ago, that was you, word for word. Then deal 7 goes wrong, and it goes wrong for a reason that is entirely your fault. Before a purchase, serious buyers pay an accounting firm for a quality of earnings review. Strangers go through the books line by line and tell you which profits are real. You don't order the full review, not because of the $20,000 fee, because those firms ask who is ultimately buying, and they write it down and keep it. So you check the books yourself at night, the way you've checked everything, and you miss it. Roughly 40% of that company's stated profit is the owner running personal costs through the business and adding them back as one-time expenses. You're out $1.9 million. That's survivable on its own. But the group carries real debt now, and debt comes with covenants. Promises that earnings stay above a set multiple of your loan payments. The missing $1.9 million pushes the whole group under that line. You're in breach. The lender's letter is extremely polite. They'd like to restructure. They'd like additional security. They want a personal guarantee from the beneficial owner. 40 minutes ago in this video, you stood up and walked out of a bank rather than sign that page. Now you sign it. Worse rate, tighter terms, and no government guarantee sitting behind it. Line 3, crossed out. You'll read online that one kind of purchase agreement protects your identity better than another. It doesn't. That choice is about taxes and about which of the seller's problems follow you home. No contract you have ever signed protected your name. Only the absence of a reason to look for it did. And the structure did exactly what it was built to do, right up until somebody with money asked it to stop. Then it took one signature to cut straight through all of it. The group is worth $47 million. Rule 2 is dead, and there's no line on the card for rules. You hired her in month 14, an assistant, part-time, in another country. She thought she was helping a small consulting agency because that's what you told her. By month 28, she's running vendor contracts. By month 40, she is effectively your chief operating officer, and the two of you have never been in a room together. In year 3, she catches a $40,000 billing error that 3 other people had already signed off. You want to tell somebody about her. You realize there is nobody to tell. Once, she asks who owns the parent company. You give her an answer that is technically accurate and completely useless. It isn't a lie. It's a smaller truth standing in front of a bigger one. Month 46, she stops asking. She's worked it out on her own, the way people who read every contract eventually do. She doesn't threaten you. She doesn't even seem upset. She asks for equity. After 4 years, she wants to own part of the thing she helped build. And here's the honest version. Because I can make this simpler than it is, you could do it. There are several ways to give someone real economic ownership that never appear on any public record. But every one of them creates a document with her name on it and your signature next to it. Held by her. In her country. Forever. You tell yourself you're protecting her from something. You almost believe it, and that's the part you'll think about later. The truth is much smaller. You don't want a witness. You offer her cash instead. A lot of cash. She takes 2 weeks, then she's gone. 2 months later, so is the person you've been living with. She isn't angry either. That's what you weren't ready for. She says she spent 4 years feeling sorry for you. She thought you were struggling. She thought the long nights were desperation. She was being kind to a man worth $47 million. You let her because correcting her would have cost a line on a card. Same season, your cousin's company nearly fails. A payroll gap, $400,000, one bad quarter. You could close it before lunch. But a wire from a company nobody has heard of to a founder everybody has heard of is a question. And your name is the answer. You let it ring. He survives it without you. He will never know you were there. To get bigger, you need capital, and the only capital available to a man with no name is somebody else's equity. Private credit starts at $25 million. You're at 47 now. You can finally reach the rung. But to climb past it, you need an equity partner underneath you. Month 52. A family office wants in. They have one condition, and it isn't about price. They want to meet the person they're backing. In a room. With a face. You sit in the garage under their building for 11 minutes before you go up. Not because you're nervous about the money, Because once 4 people have seen your face, there is no version of this where they unsee it. The last time you were in a garage like this, you were protecting the secret. This time you're handing it over. 6 years of rules, and it ends with a handshake and a coffee nobody drinks. Line 4. And rule 1, the very first thing you ever wrote on that card is now just handwriting. Around the same time you buy a house, nothing anyone would photograph. And nobody in your life says a word about it, because a normal house is exactly what they'd expect from a man who's getting by. Rule 3 turned out not to protect anything. It just made you unremarkable to people who had already stopped looking. The money moves fast after that. 22 million in annual earnings, then 38. Month 71, a private equity group opens diligence. Their lawyers map every entity you built in order, and they do it without asking you a single question. Line 5, crossed out. 6 years of architecture, and it took a room full of strangers one afternoon. The first offer is 9.5 times earnings, $437 million. Then a second buyer appears, and the price stops being about your company at all. It becomes about them not letting the other one have it. 13 times earnings, $598 million. That's the headline number. Hold on to it for about 40 seconds. Now subtract the debt, because enterprise value is the price of the company, not the contents of your account. 237 million of it, 361 million in equity. Your capital partner owns a slice. The founders who sold to you and rolled their money forward own a slice. Your management team owns a slice. Your share is 245 million. Then tax. Then the portion they don't hand over on the day, held back for 3 years against performance you now have to deliver for somebody else. Cash in your account on closing day after tax. About $131 million. That is an extraordinary amount of money by any measure. It is also less than a quarter of the number everyone would have printed. Enterprise value was never the price of you. Go back to the card. The IRS, the bank, the lender, the partner, the buyer, 5 people found out what you own, and every single one found out because you needed something you could not get any other way. You never crossed out the 6th line, not because you protected it, because you never wrote anything on it. You were never invisible. You were only unsearchable. There's a difference, and it took you 6 years and $600 million to find it. Every institution with actual power over you knew precisely who you were the entire time. What you bought was distance from people who had no power over you at all. Journalists, competitors, strangers on the internet. And the 4 people at that table. Sunday. Your cousin is telling the Lisbon story. Everyone at the table knows the article on that wall by heart. Nobody will ever frame anything for you because there is nothing to frame. That was the design. You just never priced it. She asked if you're doing okay for money, and you could tell her tonight. You could have told her any night for 6 years. There was never a law stopping you. There was only a card in a closet and a habit you mistook for a strategy. So don't ask whether it was worth $600 million. That question has an obvious answer, and it isn't a useful one. Ask whether it was worth one Sunday, then multiply by 312. Because building it only cost $600. The disappearing is what you're still paying for. There's another half to this. What actually happens to a structure like this the first time somebody serves it with a subpoena? That video is next. Subscribe, and I'll show you where the walls really are.